The Harry Potter civil war between Emma Watson and J.K. Rowling has officially been ruled in Gryffindor's defeat by none other than British authorities. However, it appears that Emma is just like Hermione, trapped in a left-wing Azkaban prison, with J.K. Rowling acting as the mentor guarding her, sucking away all of her happiness, tormenting her, and refusing to let her go. So, 准备在新手工坊爆米花 and today it's sponsored by 地瓜口味 because 真的是代志大条。我们回来了，好久不见。我们好汽车团队一直在生小孩，终于有生一个女儿哎。And needless to say, we ain't sleeping at all. But we back now, baby. So 麻烦你帮我一个忙好不好？按赞、订阅 and share this video with your friends to make sure them and you don't miss a single episode.
Do it! Do it! Come on! Do it now!
Now, speaking of daughters, this episode is very closely related to anyone who is a parent and has a daughter, particularly on the subject of non-surgically altered women undressing in your daughter's dressing room. Oh, and also using the bathroom with your daughter and even competing with your daughter in women's sports. Because nowadays, women is a very broad term.
Oh, hell no.
Simply put, after 8 years of a rainbow influence administration, a huge question emerged. What is a woman? And this simple question ended up dividing the world's strongest military power.
Men do not menstruate. Only women menstruate. Now, you can call yourself whatever you want.
Cis men don't menstruate, but trans men do menstruate.
No,
Same
they
as
don't.
non-binary people.
Only women.
Menstruating is not exclusive
Yes,
to
it
cis
is.
women. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
So explain to me as to why my body menstruated at
if
some
your
point.
chromosomes are XX and you're young, you menstruate. If you're XY, you don't.
Correct, but what about trans men and non-binary? We're excluding a whole group of people
They're women
that
dressed
menstruate.
as men.
Well, what's a man to you? You define a man for me.
You have chromosomes that are X and Y. That's what a man is.
So why are we just looking at the science of this as an example when we've learned sex and gender identity are they're completely different things.
They're not completely different.
They are completely different.
Completely different words.
And sex is what you're born with, the sexual reproductive organs you have. Gender is what you identify with. They're completely
Well, I don't
different
accept that
things.
distinction. You have to argue for it. You're just giving a conclusion. You're just making it up.
Now, in order to identify if someone is a highly knowledgeable 小彩虹, just listen for their use of terms like cis woman, trans woman, biological female, and you'll know that they're probably very highly intelligent intellectuals. And during the craziest period to eliminate gender terms for women, these crafty as fuck 小彩虹 intellectuals who required the use of pregnant people and people menstruating, even birthing persons, declare that even saying the word woman was sexist.
On June 6, 2020, J.K. Rowling posted a tweet that mocked the term people who menstruate. People who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for these people. Someone help me out. Wumbund, wimpund, woomid, she wrote. And she immediately received a whole bunch of replies from people saying they hate her because Harry Potter books were their whole childhood and their escape, and their love for Harry Potter stopped them from themselves and that kind of thing, so now they're very upset because they don't like her view.
And one of the few who actually stood up to this goofiness was one of the most highest earning authors of our time, J.K. Rowling. And as a result, she was attacked relentlessly, which led to the term targeting these trans exclusionary radical feminists, abbreviated as TERF, which I kid you not is basically defined as a feminist who oppose women with male genitalia. And J.K. received a ton of labels, profanity, and death threats with a mountain's worth of backlash against her and her novels, calling for boycotts of her books and her movies. And within 6 hours of JK's tweet, something very unexpected happened.
I respect every trans person's right to live any way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. I'd march with you if you were being discriminated against on the basis of being trans. At the same time, my life has been shaped by being female. I do not believe it's hateful to say so. Many of the key actors and actresses from the Harry Potter films began subtly denouncing J.K. Rowling by tweeting the trans women are women slogan. Emma Watson, who played Hermione Granger in the films, tweeted, "Trans people are who they say they are and deserve to live their lives without being constantly questioned or told they aren't who they say they are." She also announced that she donated to Mermaids UK, which is a non-profit that transitions children.
Now, Emma's tweet was as shocking as when Snape killed Dumbledore. So when J.K. Rowling was knocked face down in the dirt, these three people, Hermione, Harry Potter, and Ron, joined together to verbally and publicly punch her as a way to say thank you for making them wealthy and famous.
No one asked your opinion. You filthy little mudblood.
Now, seeing as at the time no one really asked them for their opinion, they could have chosen to stay silent, but instead they chose to kick JK while she was down, which officially plunged the Harry Potter franchise into a civil war. And interestingly enough, Helena Bonham Carter, who played the villain in the films, and the dude who played Voldemort actually was on JK's side.
Our next presenter is Emma Watson. She's proud to call herself a feminist, but we all know she's a witch.
I'm here for all of the witches.
I'm here for all the witches. Now, while this segment appears to be Emma responding to the host's joke, there's a detail that you have to notice. After speaking, there's a moment when she mouths something off mic, which many interpret to mean except one. And since witches represent Harry Potter, that leaves a question: which witch is excluded? Now, some interpret this as Emma throwing shade at JK, the OG witch who created all the witches below her.
Maybe not.
Now, there is speculation online that Emma stated she wouldn't appear in any more works by JK, but I couldn't find any evidence to substantiate that. And I also couldn't find any videos or articles of Emma directly attacking JK's position. In fact, Emma's only seemingly opposition to JK's stance was that single tweet without any personal attacks and that speech which some interpret as her criticizing JK Rowling. However, at the exact same time, I couldn't find any statements of Emma publicly supporting JK Rowling's freedom of speech or even speaking out against the personal attacks and death threats against JK Rowling herself.
Taiwanese Olympic boxer Lin Yuqing has seen renewed attacks concerning her gender eligibility, despite the IOC clearing her and Imani Khalif of Algeria to compete in Paris. High-profile figures like author J.K. Rowling have weighed in on a heated online debate around the boxers being allowed to compete despite failing gender eligibility tests at the World Championships last year. The Chinese Taipei Olympic Committee and Taiwan's president Lai Ching-te have backed Lin, who has competed professionally for 15 years as a woman and does not identify as transgender.
These are regular athletes who've competed for many years in boxing. They're entirely eligible. They are women on their passports. That, I think, is enough said from me.
And after being abandoned by Hermione and Harry Potter, facing constant cyber violence and rumors circulating online that Emma refused to work with her again, along with Emma's seemingly confrontational speech at all the witches, J.K. Rowling was transformed from a children's book author into a women's rights activist. And she went hard against transgender women's issues, including her criticism of our Taiwanese boxer Lin Yuqing. Now, although I do believe J.K. had a dog shit take on that one, I do respect her ability to maintain her stance despite facing so much in criticism.
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society at the expense of another. It is not.
The ruling is the culmination of a 7-year battle by rights groups for women Scotland. It was prompted by a Scottish Parliament ruling that transgender people should be included in quotas designed to promote women's representation. The UK's highest court says that violated equality law, which protects women and transgender people separately. The ruling has implications for the whole of the UK.
Now, just a few months ago, the UK Supreme Court ruled on what defines a woman, determining it as based on biological sex at birth. This absurd question of what is a woman somehow required the nation's brightest minds in 7 years to decide. And after this ruling, JK proudly celebrated this on her Instagram.
Marching through the streets of London, one of the largest right-wing demonstrations to take place in the UK in modern times. Organized by the far-right anti-immigration activist Tommy Robinson, it was billed as a celebration of free speech.
Illegal immigration is out of control, and we're losing our voice. You know, I mean, freedom of speech, I feel, is being eroded.
Close by, a much smaller counter-protest organized by anti-racism activists.
I'm just really against racism.
So close at one point that right-wing marchers began throwing things at them and pushing police. But some demonstrators were looking beyond Britain's borders. Among the Union Jacks and St. George's crosses were MAGA hats and American flags.
Then, 2 weeks ago, Britain saw its largest right-wing demonstration in its entire history. The entire country, from the High Court's ruling to street protests, has shown a clear shift. From illegal immigration to transgender representation in sports, Britain has decided to bid farewell to the extreme Xiao Cai Hong ideology. And then, 5 days ago, Emma appeared on a podcast.
You know, you've kind of been out of the public eye for a while now.
Yes.
And don't do that many interviews. I've watched the interviews you have done even before we planned to do this. And I wanted to ask, from an intention point almost, why now, why today, why here?
I think I mentioned, but I read your book because my dear friend Nupa told me that I should. And every now and again, I would see you come up on my feed. I don't spend much time on Instagram anymore, but when I did, I just felt like you were having a different conversation. And it's not that I have stopped doing interviews because I want to hide myself away. I think it's because I wanted to be able to have a certain type of conversation that I didn't seem able to find a space for. And so I called Nooper and said, I think I just reached out to Jay to see if he would let me come and do his podcast on Monday.
我要跟你讲起来在5天内这个 podcast 超过275万个 view and no topic was spared. However, in this nearly 3-hour interview, there was one thing she did not mention: trans women or anything related to left-wing ideology. Not a single peep, indicating that unlike Jimmy Kimmel, Emma Watson can actually read the room.
So many conversations and comments directly from J.K. Rowling, whether it's her saying she'd never forgive you for your views, or the fact that when she was asked what ruins the movies for her, she named yourself and some of your co-stars. And I imagine that's an extremely difficult thing when you've been a part of someone's world, when you felt connected to their work, and then for it now to kind of be a full 180, and for someone to publicly say these things that can be quite or extremely hurtful, actually. How do you think about that?
I really don't believe that by having had that experience and holding the love and support and views that I have mean that I can't and don't treasure Joe and the person that I had personal experiences with. I will never believe that one negates the other, and that my experience of that person I don't get to keep and cherish. I come back to our earlier thing, I just don't think these things are either or. I think it's my deepest wish that I hope people who don't agree with my opinion will love me, and I hope I can keep loving people who I don't necessarily share the same opinion with.
Now, I gotta say, if Emma truly valued J.K. Rowling, she could have simply spoken up when J.K. was facing all them shitty online attacks, saying that personal attacks and death threats against her should stop, and that different viewpoints can coexist with mutual love. She could have said,
I support transgender women while supporting J.K. Rowling's freedom of speech. These two positions can coexist.
But she kept her mouth shut. She didn't offer any support when JK needed it the most. The only thing she did do was indirectly join those opposing JK.
It's not so much what we say or what we believe, but very often how we say it. That's really important, and that's really frustrating and not what you want to hear when you're really angry and upset with someone. But I don't know, I just see this world right now where we seem to be giving permission for this kind of like throwing out of people, or that people are disposable, and I just think I will always think that's wrong. I just believe that no one's disposable, and everyone, as far as possible, whatever the conversation is, should and can be treated with, at the very least, dignity and respect.
Thank you for challenging us, and yeah, it takes a lot. I think that's what we're all being challenged to do, is try and hold two truths at once, and
yes,
those two truths don't have to be complementary, but they can stand at the same time. Yeah.
I think the thing I'm most upset about is that a conversation was never made possible.
So you remain open for that dialogue?
Yeah, and I always will. I believe in that.
Interestingly enough, Emma has J.K. Rowling's phone number. The opportunity for dialogue is right there in her phone in her hand. She could have simply called to talk when she was publicly tweeting against J.K. But clearly, Harry Potter and Hermione's owl couldn't find J.K.'s address.
And also, honestly, just as a young woman, for her to have written that character, created that world, given me an opportunity, which, to be honest, barely exists in the history of English literature, how can there's just no world in which I could ever cancel her out or cancel that out for anything. It has to remain true. It is true. And this is where this like holding of these, I just don't know what else to do other than hold these two seemingly incompatible things together at the same time, and just hope maybe they will one day resolve or like co-join themselves, and maybe accept that they never will, but that they can both still be true. And I can love her. I can know she loved me. I can be grateful to her. I can know the things that she said are true. And that can be this whole other thing. And my job feels like to just hold all of it.
Simply put, Emma thinks that J.K. loves her. And now Emma can accept her, because it's her job to be inclusive. Now, I don't know about you, but this just might be the worst possible opening for a chance at reconciliation. How in the hell do you plan on fixing things by saying, hey, I know you love me, and I love you too because it's my job?
Fuck you. Fuck you.
Emma claims to love, respect, and support J.K. Rowling, but when J.K. Rowling was under fire, she said absolutely nothing. Then, after nearly 7 years of making films that no one saw, she wants to reconcile with a woman who created her career on a podcast. And then on the flip side, with years of copious amounts of backlash and death threats, in the face of it all, J.K. Rowling has never wavered once in her position. And now that the UK High Court has seen the light and ruled in her favor, how exactly do you think J.K. Rowling is going to react to all this?
When it comes to my relationship with Jo, obviously, I will never forget the opportunity that she gave me. She saw something so special in me that she knew she had to bring me into her creative vision and make me part of that. And I will forever be grateful. She changed the entire trajectory of my life, and I'll never forget that. It's such a privilege. It truly, truly is. And I will always hold space for her and so much love in my heart for her, and I would hope that she felt the same way about me. But also, I stand shoulder to shoulder with those who would wish harm on her, hate her, and would wish the absolute worst for her in her life. But those seemingly incompatible, those two things can exist at the same time, which is why I love this incredibly diverse world that we live in. It can be so visionary, it can be so artistic, it can have so much depth of love and anguish at the same time, and peace and war and time and space. But we can all come together and also seemingly push each other apart and distance ourselves expediently. But I truly feel that there will always be a warmth and a love between myself and her. I know she's still writing, and hopefully those writings will one day become hit movies and perhaps a franchise, and maybe she would consider working with me again down the line. My agent hasn't called me in a while, so I don't know if that would be possible, but I truly would love to reconnect with her, and I hope she understands how much I truly love her.
So one day after this podcast was released, J.K. Rowling shared this video on her X account. Then, a little over 24 hours ago, she proceeded to write this 700-word essay passing as a tweet, which got over 50,000 shares and 32 million views. Shit, Hermione is about to face a 大鸡大屌spell more powerful than Voldemort could even cook up.
I'm not owed eternal agreement from any actor who once played a character I created. The idea is as ludicrous as me checking with the boss I had when I was 21 for what opinions I should hold these days. Emma Watson and her co-stars have every right to embrace gender identity ideology. Such beliefs are legally protected, and I wouldn't want to see any of them threatened with loss of work, or violence, or death because of them.
I have to say that this part is exactly the kind of support that Emma should have provided J.K. Rowling when she was under attack. It's painfully obvious that Gryffindor didn't teach Hermione how to handle public issues.
However, Emma and Dan in particular have both made it clear over the last few years that they think our former professional association gives them a particular right, nay, obligation, to critique me and my views in public. Years after they finished acting in Potter, they continue to assume the role of de facto spokespeople for the world I created.
Now here, I think J.K. is being sarcastic because Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe are the most recognizable faces in the entire Harry Potter franchise. So maybe what J.K. is saying is, you're successful because of me, and people still can't separate you from my creation.
The television presenter in the attached clip highlights Emma's all witches speech. And in truth, that was a turning point for me. But it had a postscript that hurt far more than the speech itself. Emma asked someone to pass on a handwritten note from her to me, which contained the single sentence, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through." She has my phone number.
Now, obviously, J.K. also thinks Emma's all witches speech was a dig at her, and she reveals an even bigger bombshell. After this speech, Emma wrote a note to J.K. Rowling, saying that she was sorry for what she was going through. A note, not a letter, like a memo from a boss to a subordinate. And Emma had J.K. Rowling's phone number and could have called or texted her, but Emma chose to send a note. Simply put, J.K. is saying, Emma, you are one hypocritical witch.
This was back when the death, rape, and torture threats against me were at their peak. At a time when my personal security measures had to be tightened considerably, and I was constantly worried for my family's safety. Emma had just publicly poured more petrol on the flames, yet thought a one-line expression of concern from her would reassure me of her fundamental sympathy and kindness.
Now here, JK's anger is fully expressed. Emma didn't provide support when JK needed it, but instead, after her public all witches speech, caused more people to attack her, and then hypocritically wrote a note to her. This revelation is basically saying that Hermione shouldn't have been sorted into Gryffindor, but instead should have been sorted into Slytherin.
Like other people who've never experienced adult life uncushioned by wealth and fame, Emma has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is. She'll never need a homeless shelter. She's never going to be placed on a mixed-sex public hospital ward. I'd be astounded if she's been in a high street changing room since childhood. Her public bathroom is single occupancy and comes with a security man standing guard outside the door.
And here comes the most real part. Some people live in wealthy classes and don't need to work at all. They enjoy the highest level of protection and cannot understand certain issues. Hollywood stars simply cannot understand ordinary people's lives.
Has she had to strip off in a newly mixed-sex changing room at a council-run swimming pool? Is she ever likely to need a state-run rape crisis centre that refuses to guarantee an all-female service? To find herself sharing a prison cell with a male rapist who's identified into the women's prison? I wasn't a multimillionaire at 14. I lived in poverty while writing the book that made Emma famous. I therefore understand from my own life experience what the trashing of women's rights, in which Emma has so enthusiastically participated, means to women and girls without her privileges.
Now, Emma was already extremely wealthy and famous at the age of 14. While J.K. grew up from poverty, she knows the fear that disadvantaged women experience in public spaces. But Emma doesn't really have to face those fears. Simply put, Rowling is saying, Hermione, you don't understand shit.
The greatest irony here is that, had Emma not decided in her most recent interview to declare that she loves and treasures me, a change of tack I suspect she's adopted because she's noticed full-throated condemnation of me is no longer quite as fashionable as it was. I might never have been this honest.
So with the rise of the British right wing, the High Court's ruling, and even Trump's re-election, and possibly even the recent Charlie Kirk assassination, the message to Emma and everyone else who agrees with her is loud and clear. We are tired of this goofy woke shit. And now that we won, we will have none of it. And J.K. Rowling has spilt the tea on Emma, showing the world that she is just trying to whitewash her image and distance herself from the goofy shit she agreed with several years ago.
Adults can't expect to cozy up to an activist movement that regularly calls for a friend's assassination, then assert their right to the former friend's love, as though the friend was in fact their mother. Emma is rightly free to disagree with me, and indeed to discuss her feelings about me in public, but I have the same right, and I finally decided to exercise it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the most brutal breakup letter of 2025. Basically, J.K. Rowling is saying, Emma, you ain't no witch, you're a bitch. And a hypocritical one at that. And now she just let the entire world know it as well. Now, since this entire incident, Emma's interview has had more than 2.7 million views in 5 days, 90,000 likes, and 6,000 comments. While J.K. Rowling's post has 33 million views, 290,000 likes, and 14,000 comments. So, looking at the numbers, what does this tell us? Hermione 的洗白很失败.
5 points will be taken from Gryffindor for your serious lack of judgment.